Welcome to Flavor Text, a podcast where we explore the intersection between lore, story, and gameplay in Arkham Horror, the card game. I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'm joined, as always, by my awesome colleague, Kevling. How are you, Kevling?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good.
I've been promoted from erstwhile.
Yeah.
I've gone from absent to awesome. Thank you very much.
No worries. How have you been?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah.
That's good.
Not done much Arkhaming of late, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'm working my way through Edge of the Earth for the second time. I'm about to start City of the Elder things. I've had it laid out on my desk. It's still here in front of me. But I've just not had a chance to dive into it yet.
Right.
I keep getting distracted by other things.
Yes, I noticed you've been posting some other solo games on Facebook and things.
Yes, I got Tiny Epic Dungeons Kickstarter arrived this week, so I've had a couple of goes at that and failed at both of those. Right. I picked up a copy of Judge Dredd Helter Skelter, which is based on Wildlands, which is a skirmish game, but it has an expansion with a solo mode. Right. And I had a go at that yesterday, and I failed at that as well. So my Arkham reputation precedes me. But yes, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? What have you been playing?
Edge of the Earth, still going. The fortnightly game that I play with a couple of other people. That's still keeping on. I think we're about halfway through. There's a particular scenario, I'm not going to spoil it, there's a particular scenario you can return back to more than once. So
yes.
You probably know the one I'm talking about. It's
entirely optional as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I think on my first playthrough, I completely skipped it because of time. But my second playthrough, I've taken every option to do it, but it's only shown up once so far.
Right. Yes. Well, we're about to do our second go around on that. So for anyone who knows the Edge of the Earth, they'll know where we're sort of at with that. So been doing that. As I was talking to you before, I've been playing Death Stranding. I kept butting my head against it. I think I might have said before, but I got into it, so I've nearly finished it now. So pretty much, it was good. I enjoyed it once I got over the initial challenge of walking around and not doing very much. Once I got into it, I've really enjoyed it. So and so that'll clear my slate for Elden Ring, which comes out on Friday. So that will be taking up a fair bit of my time.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So there we are, and. So it's really fantastic to see we're getting a lot of people listening to our podcast. Every episode we bring out, more and more people are listening, which is great to see. And we're getting a bit of correspondence. The mailbag is filling up. I've got it here, Kevling. It's this large sack of letters, airmail. You know those airmail letters, the blue ones.
Yes,
where you'd write on them and then fold them up and sticky them. Lots of those.
Any postcards?
Yes, postcards from all over the world. With pictures of various locations. Wish you were here in Torquay or wherever it may be. All kinds of things. So yes, lots of mail correspondence coming through. There's a couple of things that came through since we did our last episode. One of them was from a fan of the show, Sub-Zero Joe. Now I have to apologise to Sub-Zero Joe because in the last episode I kept talking about where Doom awaits. In my own mind, I keep thinking that's the final scenario. Actually, he was actually talking about Lost in Time and Space was the one that he was saying, needs a bit more of a reappraisal based on some other lore by H.P. Lovecraft. So I do apologize about that, Sub-Zero Joe. I'm not the most detail-oriented person. The other thing he did say, though, was he talked about the theatre. Now, he's an architect, by trade. And he says, I do wonder, this is a direct quote by him, I do wonder for the population of Arkham what size theatre would be appropriate, because that balcony looks pretty majestic for that period, more likely in a major city than Arkham. Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't got any concept of how big or small Arkham is supposed to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's a fairly small town, actually.
I mean, it's got a university, hasn't it? Or is that somewhere else?
Yeah, that's true, actually. So I think it's sort of a mid-sized town. It's not a big place by any means. Yeah, but it's not a tiny town. I think it's sort of mid-size, which I don't know what population that would be, but. But I think what Sub-Zero Joe's saying is if you look at the pictures of the theatre, it's like a grand theatre that you might expect to see in a capital city, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fair enough. As someone else, also, we got some correspondence from Dan, and he writes, I've quote it here. This is quite interesting. It's been a pleasure listening to your new podcast. Thanks for sharing your time with the community. I've had the pleasure to play a couple of times with the League of Extraordinary Investigators, and I'm looking forward to the next season. Yes.
Yes, we're planning that at the moment, aren't we? Or we're trying to. Yes.
That's right, as we speak. And while not the same as the content of your podcast, I consider this a bit adjacent on a Discord server for my FLGS. And he gives me the Discord server link, which I'll put in the notes. I run a bit of a playthrough of my adventures in Arkham. I attach a PDF of my latest playthrough, Curtain Call. For the most part, only a few Arkham players are on that server, but it's a nice place for a friendly conversation. The playthroughs are rough from a pro's perspective, but it's a nice way to make it all work together in my head. And so Dan's playing a Jim Calvin two-hander for Path to Carcosa, and he's writing the story as he goes through. So he's sort of writing the prose to go with it. Yeah. So thanks for playing along, Dan, and keep sharing your story. That's awesome. So there we go.
People are actually listening. Wow.
They are actually listening. Yes.
It's not just us doing a test listen to make sure the podcast publishes correctly.
That's right. Exactly. We're not one of those weird radio signals, that sort of
like a number station. Yes.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, we're like an Arkham number station just sits there randomly reading out Arkham cards ad infinitum.
Exactly. That would be awesome, an Arkham number station. I love it. So where are we at? So where are we at on the Path to Carcosa? Where are we at, Kevling?
Well, we were at the theatre, weren't we, last time?
Yes.
And as we left the theatre, we saw this advert for a party, wasn't it?
Yep.
Is it party for the sort of like the cast members and people behind the play? So we're heading off to 1452 Atlantic Avenue, where Constant Domain is hosting this event. So
yes.
Yeah, interesting times ahead.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the intro to the scenario is very brief. It's quite shockingly brief, actually.
Yeah, I thought I'd missed a page, particularly if you come straight from Edge of the Earth, where you've got to read a half a novel before you can start the scenario.
I know, it's quite shocking just how short the intros are. In fact, it's quite refreshing in a way because, I think the thing is with this one, it doesn't need much of an explanation because it's sort of set the scene in the previous one, and so it sort of it doesn't need much of a introduction at all. I mean, it just says if anyone has answers to the questions that burn in your mind, it's the cast and crew of the King in Yellow. With no other leads to pursue, you put on your best clothes, not your fine clothes, but your best clothes, and head to 1452 Atlantic Avenue, where a woman named Constance Domain is hosting an event in celebration of the play's one-night engagement in Arkham. And that is it. That is literally it. But that pretty much, you don't need anything else, really. That's kind of it.
Didn't you say you looked up 1452 Atlantic Avenue?
I did. Yes, I did. I did, and I don't know if you had a look yourself, but it's it's in Brooklyn, I think it is. It's a car repair shop, and the thing that's very interesting about it is there's lots of yellow signs on the outside of the shop. So I don't know whether that was deliberate, but I thought that was fantastic. So
Superb. I really hope it was deliberate. I really do.
Yes, I hope so too. I mean, the fact that there's like 6 yellow signs all plastered around the outside of the entrance. I mean, things like, oil change here, get your, car serviced here. And there's nothing sinister about the signs, but just that there's so many of them is sort of quite amusing. So
what shall we do first? Shall we just talk through the setup?
Yep.
Not very many encounter sets in this one, just 3 from the from Carcosa and good old Ancient Evils, which we always like to see. The setup is pretty straightforward. 6 locations go out, which is like the layout of this building. And there's going to be a random guest at each of those locations except the foyer.
Yep.
Each of those bystanders gets a clue put on them, 1 + 1 per investigator, and I think this is the first time we've seen story cards. I might be wrong. I might have said this before. But yes, it's we've got story cards here. So these bystanders you flip over, and there's some extra narrative on the back, which is obviously always good for a narrative-based podcast.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the first time they've used these story cards, and in a way, it feels a bit Midnight Maskish because you're the setup, but instead of it just being a random pile of people that you draw from, this one that they're literally set out in different rooms, and it's random, so every time it's different.
Yes,
the guests will be in different rooms each time. So
and then we'll come on to in a minute what we've got to do with these guests and such like. But yeah, that is basically the setup. 5 rooms to go and have a look in. Each has a guest in. Off you go.
Yeah. So, like the sort of introduction, it's fairly easy to set up, which is great.
And then I'll go on. I'll just pick that up then. And then, as well as the bystander cards, you've got these 5 sickening reality cards that get shuffled and put under the scenario reference cards. And we won't take a peek at those because it'll be a surprise as to what happens there.
Yeah, and it's an interesting choice, isn't it? Because of course they could have just put all of these story beats in the actual text in the book or whatever you want, whatever you want to call it. But it's nice that they chose to do it this way because it feels like it's more the stories that it takes up less space, but also that it feels like it's more connected in a way rather than being in a book that you've got to go and look at. It's sort of there in the game itself. So I appreciate that. I think that's really good. Yeah. So I guess there's a bit of story still, though, even though on the agenda and the act deck, isn't there, before we kick off, which is brings this isn't going to be just any old party. This is going to be a little bit different to what we might have expected.
Yeah, so shall we start with the agenda? So agenda 1A, fashionably late. As you pull up to the manor, you notice that something is wrong. The picture gives you a bit of a clue of that as well. A trail of blood leads up to the porch steps and the front door is smashed. Muted music comes from within the house. Its warped and discordant notes painful to your ears. Has the madness of the King in Yellow already made its way here?
Yes. And it says a trail of blood leads up to the porch steps and the door is smashed. And somebody's left their hat on the ground as well. They didn't mention that bit. Horror of horrors. Yes.
Looking at the picture, it's really smashed, isn't it? Even like one of the posts that are holding the porch up is half smashed in as well. Looks like it's ready to collapse. Or is it?
Yes.
Our memories of the theatre come back to us.
Yes, exactly. So, and a pretty small doom threshold, 3. So it's that's one of the things about the agenda. It doesn't hang around much, this one.
Yeah, so we've got 3 rounds to get in and start doing things before the fun starts.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And the Act 1A has some text as well, discovering the truth. This isn't a party, it's a madhouse. Well, that sounds great. Isn't that a party? A madhouse? But anyway, it isn't a party, it's a madhouse. But for some reason, the guests are too deluded to notice. Very few of them are sane, and many are themselves horrors to your eye. Perhaps you can talk to them and learn more about the King in Yellow. And there's a lovely picture of sort of, I think it's from the courtyard, this picture. It looks like the windows are sort of covered in blood or something.
Yes.
Boy.
It's running down the panes, isn't it? Yeah.
That's right. Oh, boy. What a party.
So that then leads us on to what we're actually supposed to be doing. The objective on there is find as many clues as you can, then get out of this awful place. Yeah. But interestingly, there's that forced ability, which kind of changes the base rules of the game slightly. It says, when an investigator is eliminated, either by defeat or resignation, place each of those investigators' clues on this act instead of placing them at his or her location. So that's basically, that ties in with the objective. Find as many clues as you can and then get out. So normally, like it says, when you are defeated or when you resign, you would drop all of your clues on that location. And I think that's something we discussed in Dunwich, wasn't it? Because there was was it in House Always Wins? There was a particular location where it was almost impossible to get the victory points because you were resigning there, and that would drop your clues back on the slot on the location. So
exactly,
I think this is a way of sort of dealing with that issue. This is a scenario where our objective is to gain as many clues as possible, and resigning or being defeated isn't going to set us back. Basically, I think that's what we can read from that.
Yes, exactly. It's kind of like it's the frog in the boiling water scenario. This is how long you can stand it before you got to leap out, basically.
Yes.
And as we found, it ramps up pretty damn fast. So
yes, that heat does increase rapidly.
Yes. So, but before then, there's a lovely house to explore.
That's very true.
It's fantastic the way they've brought this house, indeed the whole party, to life. I think they've done a really good job of doing that. And the house is no kind of single room hovel by any stretch of the imagination. It's quite opulent, really, isn't it?
It is. It's very nice indeed. So shall I start with the foyer?
Yes, why not? Why not? Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's my eyes playing tricks on me, but it does look a little bit like there's a patch of blood on the carpet there in front of that sofa in the picture. Unless it's just the colouring, I'm not sure. But yes, the entrance hall is lavishly decorated, displaying the wealth of the manor's owners while still creating a welcoming atmosphere. Shall I take your coat? The doorman asks as you enter. It takes a moment before you realise the doorman has only bloody stumps where he should have hands.
Oh boy.
Lovely. And then the revealed side is a 2-shroud location with 1 clue per investigator, and we have a resign action there. Having found valuable information about the production, you depart and plan your next move. And then there's a reminder there, if each undefeated investigator has resigned, proceed to the if no resolution was reached in the campaign guide.
Yeah.
So there you go. So we start in the foyer, and we've got to get back to the foyer, having found stuff out along the way.
Yes. And so you've got all these rooms, and like we said, each room has a guest in it, other than the foyer. I think foyer is the only one that doesn't. And I think the foyer is the only one with clues actually on the actual location. All the others have zero clues on the location. That doesn't mean they don't get clues later, but at this stage, it's the only one. So
that was a problem we ran into on our practice play last week, wasn't it? Because I'd got basically a cluver,
Yes.
And I couldn't use any of my abilities or half of the cards in my deck because it was all around picking up clues from locations, and there weren't any.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like turning up for a gunfight and finding it's a party, and all you do is just drink and talk to the guests. It's very much, at least the first half is very much parley driven, isn't it? It's rather than anything. So what shall I tackle? The courtyard, maybe, because I think the courtyard's off the foyer. And looking at one of the windows, you spy the courtyard in the center of the manor. You find yourself longing for fresh air. So, and it's a 5-shroud, 0-clue location. It's quite a nasty location, it turns out, because there's a forced effect if you go there. After you enter the courtyard, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is an enemy, draw it. And the problem with that is the courtyard is really the hinge location, because it's connected to a lot of the other, in fact, nearly all the other locations, I think. So, you want to go through the courtyard quite a bit, but unfortunately you don't want to because of that forced effect. And then it has some extra flavor text here. What was first a wave of relief upon exiting the manor turns to dread. Dozens of yellow eyes stare at you from the building's rooftops, and shapes loom in the clouds above. So it's not such a pleasant place after all.
Yeah, these yellow eyes will get referenced again on one of the other locations as well. It's a shame they're not in the picture, but I guess there's only so much detail you can draw when you're drawing at that distance. But it does look like there's some sort of creature sat on the roof, unless that is an incredibly ornate gargoyle.
Yeah, I was just thinking, is it a gargoyle or something? And then there's this rather...
It's like a night gaunt or something.
It does, yeah. And then there's a rather creepy statue in the middle as well. So it's not very pleasant. Yeah.
Okay, so shall I go to the left, shall I, and is it the ballroom next?
Why not? It's like a game of a clue, isn't it? This is
Yeah, so ballroom. The distorted music grows louder as you approach the ballroom. Inside, many of the guests are dancing, eating, and enjoying themselves. Well, that sounds perfectly jolly, doesn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. And
then we'll switch we'll switch over to the revealed side. It's a 4-shroud, and as you said, no clues. And the flavour text: narrow yellow eyes watch the dancers hungrily from the darkness outside. When you try to warn the other guests, they smile politely, comment about wild animal sightings around Arkham, and go back to dancing. So yes, they're kind of not at all threatened by what we believe we are seeing. So again, they're playing into the doubt and conviction again, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
And then there's a reaction ability on there. After you perform a parlay action in the ballroom, gain 2 resources. Group limit once per phase.
Oh, okay. So basically, you can. Oh, I suppose there's only one opportunity to. Only a couple of opportunities to parley. I was going to say you could just sit here getting resources after resources, but you could only do it with whoever there is to parley in that location.
I suppose as well, you're getting a benefit if your parley action fails, because it doesn't say you have to succeed at the parley. So you could parley and fail, but you still get 2 resources out here. Then you have another go next phase.
Yeah,
next
that's
round,
right.
should I say?
Interesting. Yeah, that ballroom looks pretty empty, actually. Not like that. I don't see many people dancing. Maybe it's. I'll do the dining room. Here we go. The rancid smell of rotten food wafts under the dining room door, and you barely avoid losing your lunch.
What a lovely way of putting it. Losing your lunch.
And it says you can do an action here and heal a horror. I'm not sure why you would heal a horror here. The food's awful, but then reveal a random token from the chaos bag. If it's a skull or an auto fail symbol is revealed, take a horror and place a doom on the dining room. So you can heal a horror, but there's a risk that it might end up being even worse. And the flavor text is: the sight of the guests scarfing down the awful feast, mouthful after mouthful, makes your stomach turn.
So there, maybe you should go there before thinking about losing your lunch or afterwards. Yeah.
Right. I love the use of scarfing. You don't see that used very often, but it's a great word, scarfing down there.
It's interesting about that reveal a random token, though, because when he says, "Oh, if it's a skull or a tentacle," you think, "Well, that's not too bad. That's only 2 symbols." But what you got to remember is there are 3 skulls in the bag, so it's roughly a 1 in 4 chance of you pulling that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did the maths. There's 15 tokens if you're playing on easy or standard, 16 on hard, and 17 on expert. So actually, your odds are slightly better on the hard difficulties.
Interesting.
But there you go. Yes, 26.7% chance on standard of drawing that one of those bad tokens.
Wow. There we go.
Yeah, fun math fact of the day.
You hear your statistics here on on Flavor. We should change.
That's what people are here for.
That's right. Let's start creating normal distributions of the potential draws.
Okay, so that was the dining room. That was top left, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So if I head over to the right and go to the living room, let me just find the right card. Yes, so cigarette smoke and the sounds of idle chatter drift out of the manor's living room. You feel warmth behind the door. And then when you reveal it, it's 3 shroud, and again, no clues. How many fireplaces does this place have?
There are quite a lot of fireplaces in the because the dining room has a fireplace, and the gallery, which we haven't covered, has a fireplace. So there's at least 3 fireplaces. So
it's just showing off, isn't it? And the reaction ability there is after you perform a parlay action in the living room, draw a card. Group limit once per game. So again, that's not dependent on being successful either.
Yeah, you have to worry that they're being so generous because you think,
yes.
what's coming down the pipeline?
Possibly be ahead, yes.
And then finally, we have the gallery. The sounds of conversation and warped music become muffled as you approach a lonely section of the manor. Leading to the door of the gallery is a long hall adorned with many expensive paintings, including one of Mrs. Dumaine herself. This is a 1 shroud, 0 clue location. It's got lots of statues and pictures in it. And this one, it says, somehow the guests in the gallery are still interested in the art on display, even though someone has vandalized all of the paintings and statues. My goodness, they're all kind of knocked over and slashed, and oh dear. And there's a forced effect here. After you end your turn at the gallery, test 2 willpower. If you fail, place one of your clues on the gallery. So I think that's the only one that's got... No, that one and the courtyard, obviously, are sort of more negative, whereas all the others are fairly positive.
Yeah, I was trying to think thematically, what is that representing? All I could think of, it's like it's such a strange room with all of these, everyone's still interested in it, even though the art is vandalised. That it's almost like you forget what you've learned and then you've got to discover it again, sort of thing. I was just trying to think what could dropping your clues back on there represent in that scene. That's the only thing I could come up with thematically.
Yes, exactly.
Something along those lines anyway.
Yeah.
And another fireplace, as we mentioned, yes.
Another fireplace. You've forgotten how many fireplaces are there again?
You're so busy counting the fireplaces, you've forgotten your clues and you have to rediscover.
Exactly. So, yeah. So there we go. It's it's great the way it brings the house to life with all these different locations, and there's lots going on. And that's only part of it, because of course, while there's the locations, there's also the characters in the rooms at the same time. So there's a lot going on in any one particular room. There's quite a bit happening. Yeah,
shall we take a look at the bystanders then?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they're an interesting bunch.
Yeah, the first one I've got here is Constance Domain. She's got the subtitle of Sociable Hostess. She's got the bystander trait. Her flavour text is, "Can I offer you a glass of champagne?" Her parlay action is to test intellect of 3 to ask her about the play. And if you succeed, you take control of one of the clues on her. So if you remember, it's 1 clue plus 1 per investigator, wasn't it? I think.
Yes.
1 clue plus 1 additional clue per investigator. So obviously, solo there'll be 2. If there's 2 players, there'll be 3, and so on and so forth. And then when the last clue is removed, you flip the card and resolve its text. So if you flip the card, it's a story card, as we said before. Remember that you interviewed Constance.
Yep.
And then flip this card back over to its bystander asset side. And then the actual flavour text there is, or the story text, should I say, not flavour text. It doesn't take long for the amiable hostess to open up to you about the play. Oh yes, my husband and I helped Sebastian produce the whole thing, she explains. I was a little hesitant at first, but that director, Mr. Nigel Engram, my, what a talented man, she laughs. He's so very eccentric. Did you know, before rehearsals even began, he had us recite some kind of, why, I suppose it was an oath of sorts. A formality, I guess. You know, creative types and their silly rituals. But afterwards, we were filled with so much spirit. She smiles, zeal in her eyes. From that moment on, we had no hesitations. The King in Yellow would be the most successful performance in Arkham history.
Yes, so there's something funny going on. Nigel Ingram, he's clearly, there's more to him than meets the eye, isn't there? So,
definitely. And as the director, his name crops up on almost all of these story cards as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes. You're left with no doubt that he's the guy we've got to, we've got to know more about, because he does come up a lot. Yeah, exactly. So that's Constance. I've got here Ishimaru Haruko, the costume designer, and wow, what a costume she's wearing! Fantastic, 1920s shimmering outfit with a necklace and everything. As it says, my, what a bold choice of dress, looking a bit Louise Brooksish with that haircut, so her the parley for her is an action, but you have to have 6 or more cards in your hand to parley with her, and then it's just a willpower test. To question Haruko about the play. If you succeed, you get one of the clues, and then same thing again. Once the last clue is removed, you flip and read the story, which is entitled "The Pattern." In speaking with Miss Ishimaru, you discover that she designed all of the costumes worn in tonight's performance, save for one. That's strange a character. Peculiar role, is it not? For whatever reason, Mr. Engram would not allow me to change his outfit, not one bit. And that mask, she scoffs. Did you know the time I found that actor? I don't even know his name. I found him drawing a strange pattern behind the backdrop for the second act. You know, the one with the 2 sons. He gave me a terrible stare, and I dare say I jumped right off the stage and ran. You ask what the pattern looked like, and she finds a nearby napkin and begins to draw. Her recreation is much more detailed than you expected. Rings of concentric semicircles lined with strange runes, and at the centre is a pair of wavy lines. You ask her what it means, and she shrugs. Haven't the slightest clue. So they're clearly kind of inculcated with some kind of something's going on, but they don't seem to be that aware of what's going on, even though they seem to have knowledge about things and be energized by something. They're kind of a bit vague about exactly what it all means.
And do we see that symbol anywhere? I was trying to work out from the description whether it's something we will get to see later or not. Maybe we'll pick it up on a later episode.
Is it actually used as one of the sets? Is it a symbol on one of the sets, I wonder? Possibly.
Maybe. Okay, let's now have a look at Jordan Perry, dignified financier. So his flavour text, I quite like this one. Time is money, and Mr. Perry has all the time in the world. And then linking in with the theme of needing money, the parlay action there, you need to have 10 or more resources to be able to do that parlay test. So he won't talk to you unless you look like you've got something about you. You've got the goods, so to speak. And then the parlay test is test 2, intellect to fraternise with Jordan. If you succeed, take control of one of his clues. And then the story side. It's called I'm going to butcher my French pronunciation, L'Agneau Perdu, which translates as Lost Lamb.
Yes.
Interestingly. Mr. Perry is indifferent to your questions at first, but he grows more talkative as you express interest in his many investments. You learn that he has financed several productions of The King in Yellow in the past, not just tonight's performance. It was the director, Mr. Engram, who convinced me to invest, he explains. The first time I met him was in Paris at a cafe in Montparnasse. What was the name? He ruminates for some time. I've got to say it again, aren't I? Trying to remember. Anyway, he convinced me that not every investment is about capital gain. One might consider me a fool to believe him, but I don't regret my decision. I've been financing his productions ever since. He smiles and pauses for some time, lost in memory. L'Agneau Perdu was the place. Yes, what a night. Please do not write in and correct my French pronunciation. I know it was bad. But yes, it's Lost Lamb, yes.
Yeah. A lot of these story things, they don't give you a lot of information. I mean, they're basically saying Engram's, the mastermind behind the whole thing, basically.
But it's just interesting little bits of backstory, really, isn't it? It's really nice.
It is. Yeah. How it came to be financed.
Build up a picture of who these people are, why they're involved, and how they all got drawn in.
Exactly. And they're all very, very different. So, speaking of French, there's Sebastien Moreau, the impassioned producer. And here he is with it's like a butter knife in one hand, and he's holding forth, mansplaining about something anyway. And with him, you just go parley with a willpower of 3. So you've got to go head to head with Sebastian, willpower to get information about the production. And then it says he's a visionary, but you wouldn't want to be in his visions. Okay. And the first show, and I'm not going to do my Inspector Clouseau-esque French. Yeah.
Or Monty Python.
That's right. You can tell Sebastian is a dramatic man from the way he speaks about tonight's production. Better than last year, indeed, the best I've ever seen. You ask him whether this was the first performance of The King in Yellow he'd helped produce, and he shakes his head in vigorous disagreement. No, of course not. We've done many shows before. Paris, Florence, New York. Why, this isn't even the first time the play has been performed in Arkham. Hint, hint, hint. That's quite a important point, that one. Surprised, you question him further. Well, all right, if you must know, I had nothing to do with the previous show in Arkham. It was several decades ago before Ward Theatre was even built. In fact, part of Mr. Engram's goal tonight was to bring the story of The King in Yellow to a wider audience. There we go.
So several decades ago, so this is sort of set, is it early to mid-20s, 1920s? So that puts us in the late 1800s then, doesn't it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Which when The King in Yellow, the books were written, they were written in the late 19th century. And in fact, some of them talked about America in the 20s like the future.
But interesting how they've tied it back to the original timeline of the story there, though. And then I think that brings us to Ashley Clark. We've not done her yet, have we? Talented entertainer. So her parley action is a simple 2-action parley. So that's your extra cost there. You listen to Ashley perform, take control of one of her clues. Her voice is beautiful and full of passion. If only you knew what the lyrics meant. And then the story side, above and below. Ashley's song is beautiful and haunting, and you find yourself mesmerised by its melody. You don't know why the lyrics call to you, but for some reason you cannot get them out of your head. Above the city, the storm clouds rage and waves crash through the gilded cage. The skies open the path above to lost Carcosa. Below the earth, the salt water seeps. The shadows fall as the red sun sleeps. The ocean opens the path below to dim Carcosa. So that's a bit of foreshadowing there, isn't it, as to what we're going to be coming across in one of the later scenarios. I think it's Black Star's Rise, isn't it, where we've got the 2 different paths.
Exactly. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
But of course, at the time, we wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, great cast of characters. I mean, they're all different, really memorable, lovely stories to go with each one. It's really great that, it really does engage you in some, like you say, there's nothing earth-shattering in most of the backstories, but it certainly just brings the whole thing to life in a really nice way. So yeah.
Yeah, and gameplay wise, it's just some nice different mechanics to what we've seen before. We've got to go and interview these the bystanders, find out a bit more, get the story card on the back, find out a bit more about what's going on, get the clues, and then obviously our plan is to get back to that foyer and resign. But chances are the Doom will have advanced the agenda by this point, because they've only got 3 turns before the agenda advances.
And there's ancient evils in the encounter deck.
Oh, there is, isn't there? Yes. Yes. So if I have a quick look back at the agenda, so we've gone away, we've chatted to a few, maybe, not got very far. The agenda advances. The final guest is the back of the agenda. If it isn't our final guest, the doorman announces, Miss Devine, your presence here has been long awaited. The woman wears a devilish dress and a similar grin. You swear you've seen the symbol on her amulet before. Well, now the real party can begin, she declares, then heads off to mingle with the other party goers. And then the action there is to find the bystander with the fewest clues on it and spawn her at that asset's location. And then reshuffle the encounter card. So let's have a look at Diane Devine then. Mercurial and mischievous. So she's 2 fight, 3 health, 2 evade, humanoid cultist and elite, and she is aloof, which is another, that's new, isn't it, at this point in the game. So she's basically, you've got a forced ability there. At the beginning of the enemy phase, find the bystander with the fewest clues and move her there. So she is basically going to move to that location and get in our way, because it says there each investigator at her location cannot discover or take control of clues. So the objective there is that she's just going to keep wandering over to the people we're most keen on talking to and stop us. Unfortunately, the way the rules are written, you can actually just leave her sat at a bystander with no clues. It's one of the things that was fixed in the return version, where they changed it to fewest but more than 0 clues. But as long as you've got a bystander with no clues, she'll just sit there and keep out of your way, unfortunately. I say unfortunately, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for the intended design.
Exactly, because I remember when I played it the first time, I'm like, she doesn't seem to be doing anything. She's just hanging around where there's no clues, and it was, I couldn't work out what she was like. It looks like she's trying to stop you from getting clues, but like you say, until they fixed it, she doesn't do that, because she just. I mean, it's possible when she first turns up that there's no places with 0 clues. That's possible, and then she would. But if not, she just hangs around on 0 clue locations and does nothing, basically. It's yes, So that's agenda 1A, 1B, and so we flip to agenda 2A, which again has a very short doom threshold. Only 3 again. And as it says, more and more this place continues to fall into madness, transforming before your very eyes. And this has a forced effect, which is when the agenda would advance by reaching its doom threshold. Instead, you just remove all the doom from play, you reset, essentially, but you resolve one of the sickening reality cards underneath the reference. So they're random. You only don't do that. You only go to agenda 2B if all the sickening reality cards have been resolved. If you still happen to be at the party when that happens, which seems rather unlikely, but anyway. I mean, I guess with a multiplayer game where you got 4 players, I suppose that could be the case. But yes, so basically it's just this cycle of 3 doom, sickening reality, 3 doom, sickening reality, and so on and so on and so on, which transforms the guests into horrible monsters, essentially.
Yeah. So on this agenda, then, so basically we're just going to keep repeating this agenda, aren't we, until all of those sickening realities have been resolved, and then if we get to the end, then we flip the agenda. So shall we have a look at these sickening realities then and see what actually is going to happen each time this agenda attempts to advance?
Yep, let's do it.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, so I read out Ishimaru Haruko before, and this is her sickening reality version. So it says a nearby guest asks Haruko if she designed the dress she's wearing, and she nods and poses for him, as if part of her effort to appeal taller. Her spine grows and extends upwards, separating her torso from the bottom half of her body. Instead of crying out in pain, she smiles at the attention she receives. So if you are at her location, you take a horror. You take the clues off her if there are any left, and they go on to the location. So that's the other thing with each of these. If you haven't finished parleying or you haven't parleyed them, those clues end up on the location.
Yes. So at least the seeker has something to do then.
Yeah, exactly. Not that you'd want to be in the same location, because all of these monsters are pretty nasty. So Ishimaru Haruko is just skin and bones. She's 6 fight, 3 evade, 4 health. She's monster, lunatic, elite, and she's a hunter. After you deal damage to Ishimaru Haruko by an effect other than an attack, draw the top card of the encounter deck. So, wow. And it says, doesn't this dress look gorgeous on me? And she's victory 0. Don't know what that's about. But she only does 1 damage and one psych and one physical damage. So she doesn't do too much damage, but boy, her fight's high, 6. So
I guess the victory 0 is that she wouldn't have a natural place to discard the card to, would she? Because she's not come from the encounter deck. So it's just a way of getting it, telling you where to put the card, I think.
Yeah.
But not give you any XP for it.
XP, yeah, exactly.
Right. The next sickening reality card I've got is Jordan Perry. That's one of the ones I read out. That was the rich guy, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mr. Perry takes another puff from his cigar and his eyes turn a deep red hue. As he exhales, his skin begins to crack and hardens into stone. Cigar smoke exudes from the fissures in his skin and the temperature in the room rises dramatically. He clenches his hand around the chair's armrest, which crumbles to ash in his awful grasp. And again, each investigator at his location takes a horror. Same thing happens with the clues. And yes, Jordan Perry's monster side then. He is an imposing presence. That's understatement of the year. He's only 2 fight, but he's got 8 health thanks to his skin basically being stone. It only takes 2 to evade him, so I guess he's quite lumbering and slow. Again, he's hunter and forced at the beginning of the enemy phase healer damage from him. So not only has he got 8 health, he heals himself every round as well. And the flavour text there is, cigar smoke permeates the room, causing you to cough and wheeze. So again, that's now, we've got 2 enemies there. They're both quite tough. They've both got hunter. It doesn't take long for many of these to come out to make you want to find your way back to that foyer to resign, does it?
That's right, yes. I've got here Sebastian Moreau. His sickening reality is Sebastian's passionate debate with another guest turns ugly. His temper transforms not just his demeanour, but his body as well. Thick fur sprouts from his skin, along with several bulbous growths that leak pus and blood. His suit tears as his body distorts, bones snapping and muscles bulging. He is as much beast as he is man. Same deal with him. Take horror if you're with him, that kind of thing. He is hunter and retaliate. Sebastian Moreau, savage hysteria, 3 fight, 5 health, 3 evade, and his attacks cannot be cancelled. And it has what to be our next performance, and his attacks are 2 physical and 2 mental, so he does a lot of damage. He hits like a truck.
The other 2 we've looked at were just 1 of each. But he's quite a brute, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right, so next I've got Ashley Clark. Encore, the crowd shouts as Ashley finishes her final song of the night. Deciding to stay for one last number, she nods to the pianist. The song that follows is excruciating. Her once beautiful voice is now a wailing screech with unnatural pitch. Her skin has tightened hideously around her bones, and insects begin to eat their way out of her arms and shoulders, crawling over her body. The crowd is loving this final performance. So again, take a horror, move the clues onto the location, and flip it to her monster side. So that is Songs Die Unheard. She's 2 fight, 5 health, 4 evade. Again, she has Hunter. Each investigator at her location does not draw cards during the upkeep phase, and when she attacks, she does 2 horror. Songs that the Hyades shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa.
And all of those lines are from the stories,
Right.
so they're all again linking back to the stories, which is great. The way they do that. Okay, we have Constance Domain here. Hers is called Sickening Reality. Constance laughs as the... Are they all called Sickening Reality? Oh,
they are, yes, yeah.
Constance laughs as the skin begins to slough off her body. Blood trickles from her shedding skin, leaving a trail of crimson on the carpet where she walks. One might expect her to cease functioning with her ribs and organs exposed, but she barely seems to notice. Boy. And a picture of her with just ribs, and she's a 4 fight, a little too sociable. 4 fight, 6 health, 1 evade. Hunter, while Constance Domain is exhausted, she gets +3 fight, so it's pretty hard to attack her even if you can evade her. And she does 2 physical damage, which kind of is sort of mirroring Ashley Clark with 2 mental damage.
So she's really easy to evade, isn't she? She's only a 1, but obviously once she's exhausted, it's harder to hit her. So it's more a case you evade her and get away rather than evade her and fight her.
Exactly. So all pretty tough.
2 or 3 of those come out, and you are running away, aren't you? Well,
we certainly were. I mean, we were lucky to get out actually without being defeated when we played. We got ourselves into quite a pickle, but we got away.
If we just look back at the agenda, so let's say the worst happened and all 5 of those came out, and then the agenda goes to advance again.
Yep.
I do quite like this. The final agenda 2B, says if you can't beat them, it's all in your head. It must be. How else could you explain what's going on around you? You've had 1 too many drinks. Your mind's playing tricks on you. Everyone's having so much fun. All they want is for you to join them. If you can't beat them, join them. Yeah, resolution 3.
Come and join us.
Join
us.
Join us.
It's really great because it's like you've clearly succumbed to whatever.
Really another interesting. What happens when the act progresses?
Oh, that's funny. Yes, when the act progresses, it just has ? Question mark, and then it's got madness, noun, madness, the state of being mentally ill, especially severely, and then it's got a list of extremely foolish behavior, a state of frenzied or chaotic activity. Why are you looking at this side? There is no reason to flip to Act B. Flip it back to Act A. Someone clearly had a lot of fun doing this scenario because there's lots of humour in it. It's really good.
It's almost breaking the 4th wall there, isn't it? The game is now talking to us. What are you doing? And it's also putting that doubt from the game in our mind. Yeah, why did I do that? What am I doing here?
Yeah. It's really good. You're right, that breaking the 4th wall. It doesn't really happen in any other of the campaigns. And it's really, really great the way that it does that. So, yes.
I think there is one campaign later that it does do something a little similar, doesn't it? Where there's something about being hunted. I think there's an agenda that you look at the reverse of when you're not supposed to, and it actually tells you, remember, you are being hunted. Wait, what? And I think that plays in. I think is that Circle Undone, maybe? Not sure.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know that campaign very, very well, actually. Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant.
So there we go.
I think that's pretty much all of the playthrough, isn't it? So shall we have a look at the resolutions?
Yes, absolutely.
We've basically got 3... There's 3 resolutions going sort of from best to worst. as usual. So your resolution 1 is either there's no resolution, but at least one person resigned, basically.
Yep.
Your resolution 2 is everybody got defeated, and your resolution 3 is all of those sickening realities ran out and the agenda advanced.
Yes.
So that's just the high-level overview. So your resolution 1, and interestingly, the bulk of the resolution is the same. The narrative changes slightly, but the actual main bullet points are identical on all 3.
Yes.
So, your resolution 1, the brisk autumn air embraces you as you exit the manor. There's no doubt in your mind that the cast and crew of the King in Yellow have become affected by madness. Perhaps it's getting to you as well. You feel an encroaching darkness, a presence in your mind not unlike the gaze of the stranger. Startled, you peer around the front yard for the first time since escaping the manor. The scene is different. The front windows are not smashed as they were when you first approached. The trail of blood you'd noticed on the porch has been wiped clean. And instead of the disturbingly warped music you had heard upon entering, the soothing tones of slow jazz drift out from the courtyard. And then our campaign stuff is we log how many VIPs we interviewed, we log how many we killed, we gain XP based on the victory, and for every 2 clues that are on that act, we gain an extra 1 XP. So that's where it comes into that when you resign, you drop your clues on the act instead of dropping them on the location. So they still count in the resolution. And then we proceed to the interlude. And I think that is the only way the interlude is triggered. The other 2, you skip it.
Yes, you're right. So with the other 2, you go directly to Echoes of the Past, correct?
So do you want to take resolution 2?
Yes. So resolution 2 is everybody's defeated. Excuse me, but it's very late, you hear the server say as he gently taps you on your shoulder. You realise that you're sitting on a couch in the manor's living room and that you must have been asleep for some time. The party appears to be winding down. No music fills the halls, the food is all but gone, and only a few guests remain. Perhaps you'd like for me to get your coat, the server asks with a trained smile. You wobble as you rise to your feet, leaning against the couch's armrest. Your head pounds with a dizzying intensity and your vision is spotted. You insist that you're fine and you begin walking towards the foyer. You no longer see any of the guests you were searching for earlier, not even the hostess, Mrs. Dumaine. All traces of the madness and horror you've experienced are gone. Even the oddities you witnessed upon entering the manor have vanished. The signs of struggle, the broken windows, the blood trail on the porch, the hat on the ground. Every piece of evidence has been erased. But you still remember the night's events and in your memory you will find your answers. Yes, so that's right. So that's resolution 2, and you skip the lunacy's reward.
The first 4 bullet points again are the same about logging your progress, but it does then say you need to remove all cultist, tablet, and elder thing tokens from the chaos bag. I'm not sure if it's playing with us there because there aren't any.
There was, because we ended up with 2 tablets.
Ah, yes, that was it then. Oh, yes, there was you got 2 of one or the other, didn't you? So it could be any 2 of each of those 3.
Each of them. Yeah, remember it was whether it was the ooze or the fire or the water.
Oh, yes, that's okay. I thought it was another trick there, playing with our own perceptions of what's going on in the game. But yeah, so they whatever got put in, they come out and you get 1 of each instead.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you skip the interlude again. And then resolution 3. So this is the worst one. So when you've gone through all 5 of the sickening realities and the agenda still progresses. Several days later, you find yourself reminiscing about the party you attended at 1452 Atlantic Avenue. What a roaring good time you had. Your memory is hazy. You can't help but feel you're forgetting something important. Something about the play you'd watched earlier that night, The King in Yellow. That nagging sensation pursues you in every waking moment. Try as you might to recall the night's events in full, there remains a gaping hole in your memory. As you strain to remember, your concern grows, almost to the point of obsession. Deciding that you absolutely must know what occurred that night, you head towards the Manor of the Historical Society in Southside. Perhaps there you can learn more about the King in Yellow play. So it's the same 4 bullet points about the VIPs and the XP. Again, we remove the symbol tokens and add one of each. And again, we skip lunacies. We skip the interlude. So so resolution 1, we have to go and do the interlude. Resolution 2 and 3, basically it's the same effects gameplay wise, just with a different narrative. So shall we briefly go through the interlude to set us up ready for the next?
Yeah. So the interlude essentially is that you have to decide: are you going to go back inside? Are you going to sort of block the door and run away, or are you going to kill everybody inside? It's there's sort of 3 choices that you got to kind of make. Yes.
I can't remember which one we chose. I think we just got the hell out of there. I think, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did. I think that's right. Yeah, it's kind of the most rational one, right? It's just to sort of leave it all, because if you go inside, I mean, I don't think we need to read it all, but I mean, if you go inside, basically everything's normal again. It's sort of aftermath of the party, but the stranger's there and sort of drills your head like a sort of a jackhammer, that kind of thing, and then you sort of race out the door and drive off in a haze of pain and disorientation in that one. But the lovely thing is afterwards it says, why would you go back inside? Like, it's like, why would you do that?
What did you do that for?
And you add 2 elder things to the chaos bag and add a doubt if you chose that one.
Yeah. And also log that you intruded on a secret meeting.
Yes. Yeah.
And then number 2, so that was the let's block the door and get the hell out of here. You can't trust your senses, it's a trick. So you barricade the door, get in a car, head towards South Side, where you hope to find answers. And then the first bullet point again, that door isn't going to stop them. It's like, whatever you do, you say, well, what did you do that for, you idiots?
Yeah.
So then, we log that we fled the dinner party. And this, again, we remove the tokens and put 2 tablets in instead.
Yeah. And then the most bizarre one is number 3, where you literally get petrol from the garage. You literally douse the house in petrol and put it up in flames. And the thing that's the sounds of crackling fire and snapping wood and the screeching of dying horrors fills the streets. But the thing is it really dying horrors filling the streets with screeches or not? And it says you did what had to be done. Right? So it's like, did I do the right thing? So the interesting thing is that with the others, you log which VIPs were slain. In this one, you've slain them all, which does have a significant impact on the rest of the scenarios because they've all gone. They've all been murdered, essentially. You get 2 cultists in the chaos bag, and you get a conviction for that one. So not a conviction like a legal conviction. you get a conviction mark against that one rather than doubt. And so interesting. So that one in a way is kind of good, as we'll find out. Actually, killing all of the VIPs actually does have a significant benefit to other scenarios, but. You wonder whether it was really, have you really murdered people in cold blood, or is really, it's like, just, who knows?
Well, the highlights of this campaign.
Yes. Now, the one thing I noticed, and it's only a small criticism, because when we did Curtain Call, at the end of Curtain Call, you're going to the party. But at the end of this one, they didn't make it clear, no matter what happens, that you were going to go to the Historical Society to investigate the King in Yellow from the 1880s or the 1890s. It tells you that at the beginning of the next scenario, but it's kind of a shame they didn't tell you that at the end of this scenario, that's what you're doing next and why you're going there. The only one that does that is if you do resolution 3, it says, deciding that you absolutely must know what occurred, you head towards the Historical Society south side, perhaps you can learn more about the King in Yellow play. It's a bit disappointing that they didn't say that on the other ones, so you know why you're going to the next scenario. You know what I mean? Right, that's why. Okay, now I understand why we're going to the next place. You know what I mean?
I mean, there is a little bit on the intro to Scenario 3 that kind of explains why you're going there.
Which, it's not bad, but the thing is, it's not equal across all of them, because if you happen to get R3, you know where you're going, but with the other two, you don't. It's sort of weird that they didn't sort of make it sort of consistent across the three, but it's only a small thing. It's not a big thing.
But yeah, so what do you think of that one then?
Oh, fantastic. I love it. It's one of my favourite scenarios. I just like the idea of going to a party and talking to the people and uncovering the story. And then, and I like the fact that the fighting's optional. You don't have to fight anything. You can just get out. You don't have to fight any monsters. In fact, I don't think there is a small benefit to defeating some monsters, but I just think they've done a great job in bringing the whole thing to life. So really, really like this scenario. It's sort of like the Midnight Mask, like I said, but just more story, and I think it really kind of adds to the whole atmosphere of the campaign. So really great.
Yeah, I love the way that each of those bystanders had a story on their back to sort of give you their background, which is great. But then they could each randomly turn into a monster, which also had a bit of story associated with it as well. So some really good mechanics there that obviously it would play out differently every time you try the scenario, because they will be in different locations. So that might be different based on who you're playing as well. Based on who you'd want to go after first, based on where they are, and then they will all turn at different times in a different sequence as well. So, yeah, it's whereas some of the scenarios, it's like the layout is randomized. This is what the layout is always the same, but what happens will play out differently. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is really great, and without being a really big, complex 3-hour-long scenario either.
Yes.
It's done in a really great, efficient way with lots of atmosphere and story. So it's great. And you're left without any doubt that Nigel Engram's the mastermind behind this whole thing. You imagine you're going to have to face off against him at some stage. Or will you? that's the big question. So I guess we'll be off to the Hysterical Society next time in the Echoes of the Past. I think that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah, fantastic.
Great.
Really enjoyed that.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody, and Kevling and I will tackle the Echoes of the Past next time. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
And I'm Kevling.
And we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We'd very much like to hear from you. If you would like to send us your thoughts, send it to ftextpodcast@gmail.com. That's FTEXT podcast, ftextpodcast@gmail.com. You can also listen to this podcast on YouTube. Just go to Out of Ammo, Out of Time, and you will find it there. And it's also available on the usual podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Podcast, that kind of thing. So if you want to subscribe, go there. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.